What's up everyone, and welcome back to another toy review. Today we're going to be taking a deeper dive into the advanced rules and some of the cards in HeroQuest The Card Game. Rules and cards that you may have questions about, and rules and cards I certainly had questions about when I first started playing this game. First off, I'd like to say thank you to the incredible HeroQuest community for helping me and so many other players out there understand how to play this game. In my previous How to Play HeroQuest The Card Game, which you can watch by clicking this link right here, I addressed more of the basic rules and didn't touch upon some of the certain situations when playing cards from my hand or drawing cards from the dungeon pile. Now I've been made aware that I made a crucial error in one of my turns. That being, I was supposed to lose a round for having 3 of the same threat type active on the dungeon floor. Active cards include wound cards that have been allocated to heroes, as well as threat cards that are placed next to the dungeon door. Active cards do not include the cards that are in your hand. In my previous video, I had 2 orc threats next to the dungeon door, as well as 1 orc wound card allocated to one of my heroes. Therefore, I should have lost the round, suffered a permanent wound marker on all my heroes, and then shuffle all active cards back into the dungeon card pile. Now, unfortunately, I did not notice that orc wound card as it was buried underneath another card and I just did not see it. So thank you to everyone that commented and let me know that I did make that mistake. I do apologize. Now, that's not a grand mistake, but a mistake nonetheless when trying to explain how to play a game to someone. So again, thanks to all the HeroQuest fans out there for addressing that issue. Now, certain wound and beneficial cards aren't exactly explained in the rulebook as to what happens when you draw them during a random encounter or when you draw them during the third and final step of the turn order sequence. Cards such as Firestorm, Lightning Bolt, Infected Bite, Command, Sleep, Rust, Fire of Wrath.
Fire of Wrath!
Those are just some of the cards that you may have questions about, and I'm going to go over all of them and more in this Q&A style video. Following the Q&A, I'll be playing a 2-player demo, and hopefully I can show you the cards that we all have questions about. Remember, this is a very random game, and sometimes you won't draw the cards that are beneficial to your hero, nor will you always roll the dice hot. If I win, then that's great, but if I don't, then you know what? That's just part of the game, and that is HeroQuest. Now, if you're familiar with HeroQuest the board game, then you know what I mean by vague rules. Sometimes you'll have to incorporate your own house rules to make the game a little bit easier and maybe a little bit more enjoyable for yourself and for whoever else you're playing with. So with all that aside, thanks again to the HeroQuest community for coming together to learn how to play this game. This video is for you. Alright adventurers, let's go, because the quest is calling. What happens when I draw a wound or beneficial card in the third and final step of the turn order? Cards go straight into your hand, even wound cards. These aren't active until they're played from your hand. What happens when I draw a wound card from a random encounter? The wound card must be played immediately and cannot be placed into your hand. Wound cards drawn from random encounters are placed near a hero's hero tile. The choice is up to the player which hero receives this wound. The wound now counts as active for the sake of scoring 3 identical threat symbols, if the wound card has a threat symbol on it. What happens if I suffer a wound card without a threat symbol? Wound cards without a threat symbol will have an effect written on the wound card. These effects are permanent unless stated otherwise. The effects from Lightning Bolt, Wandering Monster, Tempest, and Firestorm only affect heroes in the turn they are played from your hand or drawn from random encounters. The effects of Infected Bite, Sleep Card, Fear, Command, and Cloud of Dread are permanent until heroes heal that wound card and put it in the discard pile. Fire of Wrath has no symbol or description but has 2 wound skulls on it. Therefore, any hero that suffers from this wound card actually suffers 2 wounds for the sake of calculating how many wounds a hero has suffered. Heal this wound card immediately if possible. How do you heal a permanent wound? Permanent wounds can only be healed by using Water of Healing or Potion of Healing. There are only 2 of these cards in the entire game, so use them wisely. Are wounds caused by Firestorm permanent wounds? This is not specified on the card or in the rulebook. Use your own judgment and own house rule. I personally do count them as permanent wounds and therefore allocate a permanent wound marker to heroes that suffered a wound. What happens when I draw a beneficial card from a random encounter? The beneficial card must be played immediately and cannot be placed into your hand. Beneficial cards must be played on yourself unless it is Water of Healing or Potion of Healing, as those cards themselves state you can use them on any hero. After one use, beneficial cards are placed in the discard pile. What happens when I draw a random encounter card after playing a random encounter card from my hand? You must draw an additional card from the dungeon pile. If it too is a random encounter card, draw another card from the dungeon pile. What happens when I lose a round? Losing a round means there are 3 threats of the same type in active play. This includes wound cards and threat cards. Each hero suffers a permanent wound marker, and all active cards in play are shuffled back into the dungeon pile. This includes threat cards and all wound cards allocated to heroes. How do you remove the effects of Infected Bite, as it states you cannot heal during your action phase? The only way to heal the wound card Infected Bite is to play from your hand Water of Healing or Potion of Healing. Remember that Water of Healing and Potion of Healing can be used on any hero. Alright everyone, now that we've gone through some of the more advanced rules and some of the cards that you may have had questions about, I'm going to be playing a 2-player game. For this adventure, I'm going to be using the Elf and the Dwarf. Keep in mind, this is my preferred setup for playing HeroQuest The Card Game. You of course can set up the cards any way you like. I've gone ahead and drawn 25 cards and put them in the dungeon pile. Then I selected 2 cards for each hero from the dungeon pile and put them into their hands. You can see their hands right beside their hero tile. Alright, now let's begin with the Elf. For the Elf's first turn, she'll be playing Firestorm. And she'll be playing Firestorm on herself. Remember, when playing Firestorm, each hero must roll a die. If they roll a skull, they must take a wound. So I'm going to take a die for the Elf. Elf rolls a black shield. The Dwarf rolls a black shield as well. That's excellent. We do not suffer any wounds. As I mentioned earlier in the Q&A, the wounds suffered from Firestorm aren't necessarily permanent wounds. The rulebook actually doesn't state what kind of wounds they are. So keep in mind, use your own house rule. I like to allocate permanent wounds from Firestorm. It just increases the difficulty of the game. This of course is all personal preference, so play any way you like. So luckily we did not suffer any wounds from Firestorm. For the Elf's action, she's going to actually try to heal that wound. She fails the heal and draws a card in her 3rd step. Dwarf's turn. He is going to be playing this card. It's a random encounter card. And Rust. So Rust is, you must discard 1 card from your hand into the discard pile. So the only card left I have is Command, which is excellent. I'm not a big fan of Command. Command's really, really annoying. So that worked out in our favor. They go in the discard pile. Now for the Dwarf's action, he's going to try to defeat that card. The Dwarf will target the traps. He only needed 1 skull because he is strong against traps. And he defeats the trap. Now the Dwarf doesn't have any cards in his hand, so he does have to draw up to 2. Ouch, not the best cards to be drawing. The Elf's turn. The Elf will be playing this card. And for the Elf's action, she's going to try to heal. Nope, she fails to heal once again. Yikes, look at all these wound cards popping out. We're going to have to start healing. The Dwarf is going to play Infected Bite on himself. I chose the Dwarf as the victim of Infected Bite because the Dwarf has a lot more damage output than the Elf. So I'm going to try to avoid healing at all cost with the Dwarf. So putting Infected Bite on the Dwarf doesn't really affect him much if that's the strategy you're going for. For the Dwarf's action, he's going to try to defeat that Orc. And he fails. Another wound card. Wow. The elf is going to play sleep card. And she's going to play sleep card on herself. For the elf's action, she's going to try to heal sleep card. Because sleep card says you may not play a card from your hand. You must instead play a card from the top of the deck. That could be very dangerous because we don't know what's under there. And she succeeds. There we go. The dwarf. The dwarf is going to play fear on the elf. Fear states, during your action phase, you cannot attack, only heal and search for treasure. Now, we're going to be using the elf as our main healer, so allocating fear and wound cards to the elf will actually work in her benefit. For the dwarf's action, he's going to attack that orc. And he succeeds. The elf is going to play this card. It is a random encounter card. Not good. That already is very dangerous. Again, the elf cannot attack, so she can only heal, and she's going to heal fear. She's going to try. And she succeeds. The dwarf is going to play Wandering Monster, because if I play this one, we will trigger a round loss. The Wandering Monster is going on the elf. Wandering Monster states, return one random card from the discard pile back to the dungeon. So we're going to shuffle the discard pile. This could hurt us in the long run. There's lots of wound cards out there. And fear. We drew fear, so we are going to put fear again on the elf. Now we're running low on health. We have 3 out of the 4 wounds suffered. We have to start healing the elf. So that's all the allocating of wounds I'm going to do on the elf. The dwarf, of course, is going to try to knock out this card right here. He'll go for the Chaos Warrior or the melee attackers. He needs 2 skulls for either or. He fails. The elf is going to play this card. And the elf is, of course, going to heal fear. She fails. The dwarf is going to play this card. And just like that, we lose the game because we, well, lost the round. 1 melee, 2 melee, 3 melee. That causes 1 permanent wound. One permanent wound on both our heroes. And now the elf has sustained 4 wounds, so we lose the game. How about we try that one again? Okay, for this second demo, I've gone back to the Wizard and the Barbarian, my favorite heroes in HeroQuest. You can have a great strategy in HeroQuest the card game, but again, it all comes down to luck, and if luck's not on your side, well, then strategy doesn't matter. Now I've gone ahead and drawn 25 cards and put them in the dungeon pile. Then I've drawn 2 cards per hero from the dungeon pile and put them into their hand. Let's begin with the Wizard. The Wizard is going to play this card. For the Wizard's action, he's going to try to kill that magic. She succeeds. The Barbarian is going to play this card. Again, there's more threats on that card, so we're going to try to eliminate the card with more threats, and we're going to go after, for our action, the Dread Warrior. She succeeds. Water of Healing, excellent. The Wizard is going to play this card. I do suggest playing random encounter cards early on in the game when there's less cards up top. Firestorm. We'll be putting this on the Wizard. Of course, we have to roll 1 die for each hero, and for every skull, they suffer a wound. Wizard suffers a wound. Barbarian suffers a wound. Again, my house rule is that I make those firestorm wounds permanent markers. It increases the difficulty of the game, and well, the rules aren't really specified and you don't have a token for firestorm wounds, so this is our next best thing. Then the wizard is going to go ahead and try to heal this firestorm wound. She succeeds with 1. Well, with 2. The barbarian is going to play this card. And the barbarian is going to attack the dread warrior. She succeeds. Heroic brew. The wizard is going to play this card. Actually, no, the wizard is going to play this card. This card is a random encounter card, and we already have 2 traps on the dungeon floor. We don't want to risk pulling another trap. And the wizard is going to try to defeat this card. 2 skulls. 2 skulls it is. Good job. Good thing we got rid of that trap. The barbarian has to use one of these 2 cards. We're going to use Water of Healing and remove this token. And the barbarian's going to attack that melee attacker. She fails. The wizard is going to play this card. Actually, no. Wizard's going to play this card. Again, we already have 2 orcs. We would have 2 orcs on the dungeon floor. We don't want to risk pulling another one. The wizard is going to go after this card. We have lots of traps in our hands, so we want to eliminate that trap card. And the barbarian can take out that one, no problem. 2 skulls. She fails. Barbarian is going to play this card. And the barbarian's going to attack this melee attacker. She succeeds. The wizard is going to use and play that card. And the wizard is going to attack this orc card. 2 skulls. She fails. The barbarian is going to play Heroic Brew. Your hero may use 1 extra die during your action phase. The barbarian is going to attack this card. 2 skulls. She fails. The wizard is going to play this card. Actually, we're going to change it up to this card. Now, we lose the round because there's 1, 2, 3 trap threats on the dungeon floor. So we each suffer a wound. So each hero suffers a permanent wound token, and we take all the active cards and shuffle them back in the dungeon deck. The round is over, and then we move on to the barbarian. Barbarian is going to play this card. And she's going to attack the melee striker. She succeeds. The wizard is going to play this card. And the wizard's going to go after that magic threat. She succeeds. The barbarian is going to play Cloud of Dread on the wizard. Cloud of Dread reads, you need an extra skull on your die to defeat the Dread Warrior. Well, the wizard's never going to attack a Dread Warrior, so that card doesn't really affect the wizard at all. Now the barbarian has no other actions that she can do, so we move on to the third step. The wizard's going to play this card. And the wizard is going to try to heal the Cloud of Dread. She succeeds. The barbarian's going to play Wandering Monster on the wizard. And the Wandering Monster, of course, reads, return one random card from the discard pile back to the dungeon. There we go. We have 2 Dread Warriors and 2 traps. And the barbarian is going to attack this card. She succeeds. The wizard is going to play this random encounter card. Then the wizard is going to ask for treasure or look for treasure. She succeeds by rolling 1 skull. We choose the treasure at random. And we chose the Dread Warrior. Any dungeon card up here that has the Dread Warrior is destroyed. The barbarian is going to play this random encounter. This is very risky. Very, very risky indeed. The barbarian is going to search for treasure. Barbarian succeeds by rolling that skull and the white shield. And we find undead as our treasure. And of course, the wizard is going to play this card on the barbarian. And just like that, we lose the game once again because we have 1, 2, 3 threats of the same type on the dungeon floor. So we each suffer a permanent wound token. And now the wizard has a total of 4 wounds, and the game is over. The heroes have lost. That'll do it for today's video, everyone. I hope I was able to clear up some of the rules that you may have had questions about. If there's any additional rule or questions that you guys may have, or if my answers are still a little bit too unclear, do let me know down in the comments below, and I, as well as the amazing HeroQuest community, will be more than happy to answer them for you. Once you begin to understand these rules, trust me, you will really love and enjoy this game. It's very frustrating at first, but be patient and let the HeroQuest community help you out. It is a very, very fun and often extremely difficult card game. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you're into toy reviews. I'll totally be reviewing the new Hasbro HeroQuest when it drops later on in the year, and I am so pumped, I cannot wait. I cannot wait, and I'm sure you guys are just as excited as I am. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and you can catch me in the next one.